Welcome everybody to our Marketing Society panel, all about what clients want. I'm Stephen Mayer, I'm the Chairman of the Marketing Society, but I'm also, my paid job is CEO of digital marketing agency MBA. I'm a proud member of Network One for about 10 years now, so we've had a fantastic relationship and met lots of wonderful colleagues over the years, so thank you for that. Winston Churchill famously said, "If you mean to profit, learn to please." Now, this doesn't mean that agencies should be yes men and women. What it does mean, of course, is we're in the service business, and it's all about trust and it's all about relationships, and I think we all know that. But the sad thing is that, over the years, I rarely see data, industry data, that says that relationships are improving around trust and around some of those kind of values that we hold dear. In fact, very often you see the opposite. I'd like to think, as an agency, we all have, wonderful relationships, individual relationships with clients. I'm sure a lot of people in this room do, as of course we do as an agency. But when you look at industry data, very often you see that for whatever reason, that trust is not necessarily building, which arguably you'd expect it to be as we understand each other better. So the question is, why is this, and what can we do about it? Well, I have a fantastic range of speakers here today in association with the Marketing Society, and I'm going to introduce them in a minute. But importantly, we've handpicked our clients here. Because they're all part of global organisations, and clearly we're representing every country in the world here. Secondly, we've got a range across people who deal with creative agencies, they deal with media agencies, and they deal with PR agencies, so representing the nature of the independents in the room here. And also, we've got people who've worked in lots of different parts of the world over the years in different sectors, whether tech or drinks or whatever. Now, this panel is called What Clients Want, but maybe it should really be called What Clients Really Want. And, the Marketing Society is all about inspiring bolder leadership. It's all about being brave. And I would say today is about being brave, and I've urged my colleagues on the panel, and, maybe they won't want to work with me ever again when I give them a hard time later, okay? But the whole idea here is that as much as possible, we're candid. Please ask those questions you've always wanted to ask. They'll answer them, hopefully, as candidly. This is about, a little bit of controversy, a little bit of debate is a good thing, we don't mind. But they're big, grown-up people, so they can take it, okay? So that's not a bad thing. Now, the format of the session today is going to be very similar to last year, for those of you who were here last year, and thank you very much again, Julian, for inviting me back to this. Last year, we had a fantastic panel with Google, HSBC, Travelex, and Deutsche Telekom, and we ran a similar program where essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of our panelists, when I've introduced them, to give us one thing they love about agencies and one thing they hate. And it's really important that they give us love and hate. We want to get that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open up to Q&A, because I think, we really want to get this as much about you asking those questions as possible. So let me now introduce our amazing panel before I ask them to give me their love and hate. Lisa Gilbert at the end here. Lisa is CMO for the UK and Ireland for IBM. She runs all areas of brand and marketing and communications for the world's leading tech company, which is, of course, now so active with Watson in areas of AI, Internet of Things, and those kind of areas, which undoubtedly we'll talk about today. She covers all areas of brand and marketing, external, internal. She's originally from the US. She's worked for IBM for over 20 years in France, in the US, in China, and now in the UK from last year, running IBM here. Feel free to ask her questions later in English, but you can also try Japanese, because she actually studied Japanese at the University of California, so you can always try that. Next up, we have Barbara Barnes, second here. Barbara is VP of Marketing, Planning and Communications for Central Eastern Europe for Visa, the world's leading payment company. She's got a media agency background. She worked for the WPP network, MEC, for 6 years before joining Visa in 2013, where she ran Northern Europe from the UK, and then she took up 2 years ago her role for running Central and Eastern Europe, where there's so much growth in the business. Like Lisa, Barbara can answer your questions in many languages, her native German, Polish, I mean, when I met her, pleasure to meet her at a Marketing Society event recently, I genuinely had to get her to convince me she wasn't British. I have to say, I was very impressed. Next, we have Christina Ericsson. Christina is head of media relations for one of the few non-fake news media sites that exist in the world, called the Financial Times, I'm glad to say. She spent over 10 years working at the FT, working with PR social teams in-house, in agencies, working across Asia Pacific, EMEA. She's got this fantastic outlook working both, if you like, in communications world, but also with the communications world. And she's available for coffee after to tell us if the British government knows anything about anything that's going on at the moment, because I certainly don't. Next, we have Nick Mercer here. Nick is board and commercial director for Eurostar, ferrying millions of people every year from London to Paris and Brussels and back. He joined the business almost 15 years ago, has worked with many types of agencies over the years. He runs a team of 300. He's on the board. He's involved with sales and marketing, product development, pricing. He's experienced working in the US, in Asia, in the Middle East. And he also manages fantastic business partnerships with local youth communities such as Urban Partners. My agency's in King's Cross, the new development there, and he's a very proud supporter and runs this fantastic organisation about supporting the local community. And he won the Institute of Directors London and South East Director of the Year award for that, for his work there. So well done there. And lastly, we have Simon Tilden. Simon is Global Category Director of Advertising and Content for Diageo. I'm sure all of you know, but Diageo, the leading premium drinks company, owner of Guinness, Smirnoff, Johnny Walker, lots of amazing brands. Now, Simon spent the first 20 years of his career working in media and creative agencies, working for Saatchi's, for McCann's, the UK, Asia Pacific, the US, Eastern Europe. He joined Diageo 10 years ago. He's responsible for all creative pictures, developing agency resources, agency relationships. He's unusual, as some of you might know about Diageo. He's this kind of unusual breed of both procurement expert as well as agency relationship expert, which is something that Diageo have pioneered. And I'm reliably informed that he's got an encyclopedic knowledge of the agency world, right? So whoever you are out there, he knows you and he will find you.
Well, I think this is quite interesting. Well, I have to say, because one of the things rather interesting is I actually helped found Network One with Julian.
Well, there you go. That is even more important, I tell you. What's Diageo when you can do that, you know? So that's good. Thank you. So let's start by asking our amazing panel then, each of them, the one thing they love and the one thing they hate about agencies. And I'm going to ask them to spend a couple of minutes on that each. And then I'll ask a couple of questions and then we'll get out to the floor. So I'm going to start with Lisa.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. One thing I love about agencies, I think I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. I've been working with agencies. I started at an agency, so working with them all my career. I'd say going big, really going for that audacious, big idea. In our case, we're actually trying to humanize AI, and that's big. So whether we bring it to life via Watson and Marchesa with cognitive dress, or with chefs, or with something really big of trying to cure cancer with oncology. I love being in the trenches and going for that long-term, going big project with the agency that we work with. Should I go on to what I hate about agencies?
Please keep going, Lisa. Thank you. Please.
I hate the big reveal. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. I absolutely prefer to understand, I don't know if this is an American phrase, but how the sausage is made. I want to see the work as it's coming to life. I want to have my point of view on it. I want to have my fingerprints in it. Whenever somebody gives me kind of the big reveal, it basically shows they don't understand or respect that the work that I have to do, which is to go sell it back into the company. So the big reveal is something I hate. Absolutely hate.
Thank you, Lisa. Simon.
That's funny. I don't like the big reveal either, and that's one of the things that we do with our pitch processes is definitely don't have the big reveal. So the thing that I really love about agencies is great insight. And the thing that I really look for when I'm looking at agencies is about great insight, because great insight really informs great creative. And all too often I see work which is just not based on good insight. The thing I really hate is cast of thousands. That I just find that when an agency sometimes feels that what they have to do is justify their existence by turning up with millions of people. The first thing I did when I joined Diageo in 2006 was I went round and looked at all their agencies, and I remember walking into Grey, and they introduced me to the account management team for one brand, 17 people. So, given that they had 6 of our brands at the time, that was a hell of a lot of account people. So,
Did you ever see them again?
No, I didn't.
See? I hate that too.
So we did radically change it. But yeah, that was one of the things that I really hate. Yeah.
Okay, so you love insight and you hate too many people. Christina.
There's too many things to say, but I think I actually disagree with Lisa. I actually don't love the big idea. I love small ideas that work for communities and for specific situations. And I think with a brand like the FT, obviously it's a very well-known brand. It's a huge brand, but it's also a very small business. And actually, a lot of people think they know it, but they don't actually know the business model. They don't know how many revenue streams there are and how complex it is. And I think more than anything, we need really good ideas, but small ideas that work on a micro scale. So. I think that's one thing. What I also love is partnership behavior from an agency. So I want confidence from an agency. I want them to know who they are, know what they can bring. Don't come in with a big, a big idea that's not who they are, and they need to really understand the brand. And I think investing in that relationship is really crucial. And I think it needs to be built on mutual admiration. So you can't just go in and sell to a brand that you don't actually like and admire. You have to come in and say why. What I really hate is bad value for money, because we don't have big budgets. So I recently had a pitch from an agency. We just needed some extra hands to create some comms materials. And I think I was credited £8,000 to create 5 biographies or something. And I think not all brands are banks, basically, and the FT definitely isn't. So value for money I hate. Okay. And also crappy press releases. So sometimes I get sent releases from agencies who just want to announce that they've started working with us before it's time, and they're not very well written, and obviously when you've sent something to the FT it needs to be. So I think having that partnership is really important.
Thank you. Barbara.
I'm seeing a bit of a theme here, which is about agency confidence and how confident we are as sort of on the client side. So basically, for me, it is kind of in a similar vein. So thank you for introducing me. I started in an independent agency, basically on IKEA desks and all the boxes that had to set up a telephone system and stuff like that. So very interesting. So I think I kind of know where you guys are coming from at least. So what I want to say is what I love about working with agencies is when an agency actually values who I am as a client, basically saying what Lisa says, really understands that, when you're presenting to me, I'm sitting on one side of the table, but my next move after that internally is that I'm having you guys on the same side of the table, and then there's another person that I'm presenting to. So I need partners. I need to work with you on the ideas. And yes, I as a professional have an ambition to also put my stamp on it somewhat. And what I love about agencies is, and this is where I absolutely need you, is you're educating me. You are the ones that are the specialists in their own field. I can't be the specialist in your field. It's literally too much, and even if I would employ all these people. So I love that. I love a conversation. What I really hate is if an agency then falls down on the basics, okay? So, wrong cost proposals, or very overcharging, but also stuff like a presentation which I need to basically present on. And it's full of mistakes, spelling mistakes, doesn't matter in which language, formatting mistakes, wrong version of the creative in there. Those things can drive me mad. And ultimately, coming back to confidence, I'm losing trust in my partner.
Right.
Because you're not trusting me that I can sell your work on internally, which I have to do. but also, sort of it's about respect. And I give that to a partner, and I want that back as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Barbara. Nick?
Hi, on the train this morning, I've read about 3 sides of A4 preparing for these questions, so I'm going to be very, very succinct.
That wasn't Eurostyle.
It wasn't Eurostyle, no. What I love about agencies, I think when you're inside a business, you become very, very introvert, and you see the world in the way you believe it. And I think the real role of agencies is an outside, in view and challenging. I absolutely love that the business gets challenged. I think it's really, really important. So you should never shy away from doing that. The thing that frustrates me hugely, I think it's a lack of empathy, but I think very often agencies, you're focused on your own internal processes, and you don't think about the processes of the companies you're interacting with. Good example is you have to present, then present on, and how we're organized. And I think really, really understand the business you're working with and interact with it in a way that makes life much easier to do business.
Thank you.
That'll be my 2.
That's great. That's great. So from Lisa, we've got go big and don't, but you don't like the big reveal. Simon loves insight. He doesn't like lots of people turning up. Christina likes small ideas, but she also doesn't like agencies that are bad value for money. Barbara, very much around partnerships, but don't fall down on the basics. And then Nick, challenge me, but make sure you understand my business. That's great. Now, let me just kick off with a couple of questions before we move out to the floor. And I'm not totally sure about the time here because we've lost track actually, but I'll just keep going until you tell me because I know we started slightly late. But there was a recent survey actually done by Creative Brief and then published in Marketing Week, which says the Creative Brief, the leading industry intelligence and client agency intermediary body, which interviewed CMOs and agencies. And it said that 83% want fewer agencies on their rosters now, basically. So, I mean, that's a pretty emphatic number, basically. And I think that, something that I think, Barbara, we talked about before, which is that, the danger now is there's so many specialisms that you find yourself in a situation where you've got so many different agencies. And yet the drive would appear from this Creative Brief research is that it's drive much more towards less on a roster. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so true, and I think, I haven't read the study, but what I would think why a lot of the colleagues are saying this is because managing a large array of agencies on a roster is extremely time consuming.
Yeah.
Not only, let me say, from the basics of commercials, also making sure that you have the right people in the room, that they understand your brand. We as a payments brand are very specific in what we do. Basically, there are only 2 of us in the world. So, and then obviously lots of startups coming on board now. But so coming back to how to actually look at that, I think you need to understand as a brand where you want to head to. Where's the theme where I really need support and where I need a specialist agency? So a couple of years ago, it was definitely, let me say, social, whatever that means nowadays, So, but now the next thing may be, AI technology. I'm not sure if there's an agency that does that, but, so when you're looking at agencies, where I would be looking into an agency to actually get a specialist agency specifically in and give them more time and room with me is when it's a new topic that I genuinely need to understand better for my business and for what I want to achieve as an objective.
Okay, so you touched on AI there, and I think,
Yeah.
I know something, Lisa, you're obviously pretty big on as a company, and is that an area you think agencies are fast at picking up? Are they adapting fast enough around areas of AI, Internet of Things, or MarTech, or do you feel that they're behind the curve, or could you see more potential there?
I don't know if I can really talk for all agencies, if you know what I mean, but I can talk for the ones that we work with. And understanding that we're trying to be on the forefront of artificial intelligence, or what we call augmented intelligence, I guess it would start with, do they understand how to get at and make sense of data? And then what do you do with it? And that's how I would articulate it. So if they have an analytical mindset, if it's not all about the pretty pictures, right? And the pretty pictures matter, but it's really about what does it mean? What does it mean to clients? Do they have a test and refine culture? Are they excited to try new things? So we push our agencies to go do, I have 6 pilots in play, all AI pilots in play, some of them with our agency. Our Group M is our new media agency, and we're doing one on programmatic and using Watson to point that at programmatic to better target, to better hyper-target. So yeah, it's really, they should be coming forward to us with ideas. We come forward to them with ideas. We decide on what we're going to work on together and really have that experiment culture.
Okay. I'm going to open to the floor, actually. Please, anybody got any questions? And we've got a ball that's got to be thrown around. Gentleman in the middle.
Hello? You can hear me?
Please just tell us where you're from, agency, country, and then ask the question.
Okay, close to home. Paul Holding from Isabel Creative, based in London. And my question for the panel is, with the exception of Simon, who mentioned it as a secondary, as a result of good insight, not one person on the panel has mentioned the word creative. Is that because it's undervalued, taken for granted? Back to
That's
you.
a good question. Okay, let's, Nick, would you like to comment on that?
I apologise if we didn't mention the word creative. We obviously haven't done our job properly. But no, I think the way I look at it is that the responsibility for strategy is inside a company. I really do feel that very strongly. What you absolutely want from agencies is how you execute that creatively and those fantastic creative insights. So if we haven't said that, to me, I see there's an absolute clear delineation there.
Anybody else like to comment on that? Simon?
I'd like to pick up the question you threw at Barbara, which is about the fact that a lot of clients are looking for consolidation, because I think that's a really sticky question, because I'm getting a lot of pressure from my management, say, from the financial, from our CFO, Simon, can we consolidate the number of agencies and sort of like, put more brands into the same agency? And the first thing I did when I joined Diageo was I reviewed all the agencies, and I found some really great brands that were just floundering in the big agencies. So, in Grey, I had 6 agencies, and, Captain Morgan was really important, but the other 5 weren't very important to Grey. And guess what? They weren't getting very good, they weren't getting any good support. So the first thing I did was I went to talk to the CMO and I said, I want to sort of break it up. And so I went, Droga 5 just launched. I walked in the door and said, hi, Dave, here's a brand. I've only got 300,000, turn it round. And he did. And the thing is, I was able to go out there and find like small independent agencies, and all of a sudden those brands got real focus again.
Yes.
And actually, the amount of money we were spending was less.
Yes.
So that question is coming at me at the moment. So consolidate. And actually, I'm going, no, I don't want to do that.
Yes.
Because I don't think it will actually pay off in the end. Now, it's going to be a problem because I'll pick up a point, you've got to manage so many agencies. But I've got, we've got 71 brands and we've got we've got 1,500 marketing people. Come on, guys, you can do it. So, I mean, one of the things we have got good at, I think, is actually being a bit more realistic about what we're expecting our agencies to do. So my team now focus much more around examining, have we got the right agency for task? So we had a situation where, for example, I had Anomaly, through laziness, I think, from the brand team, building websites. That's not their skill set. So we've taken that away and we've compartmentalized and put it into the right place. And guess what? That's now, the agency's happier because it's not doing things it doesn't want to do, and it's not doing things it's not good at. And everybody's getting better work as a result of us.
So that suggests that the drive towards specialism, because there's 2 conflicting issues here.
Yeah.
Less on the roster, but then I think what you're saying is you almost want more specialism rather than less. Is that something that the rest of the panel would agree with? You want to drive towards more specialist agencies rather than broader-based agencies?
Yeah.
I mean, from a PR perspective, Christina, you've got, there's a whole debate always about in-housing, social, is it you work with agencies? I mean, you do a lot more in-house now, don't you?
Yeah, I would say we have completely rethought the way that we work with agencies. So I know 1 or 2 other media organizations who probably have, 2 or 3 or even 4 agencies looking after different parts of the business. We have 1 agency that works with our B2C marketing team that focuses solely on subscriptions and is very specialist. But apart from that, in the comms and brand teams, we just work with agencies on project basis. And we do a lot of it in-house. I mean, a lot of it has to be quality checked. And I think, I'm sure a lot of people can recognize themselves in having lots of different stakeholders with views. It seems like everyone has a view on creative nowadays. But we do have lots of people who want to input, and actually having more people in-house being able to push those things through and doing some of it themselves is really, really useful. And yes, they can work with the agency. The agency can take credit for the idea, but a lot of it then gets developed in-house as a continuation of the company.
Now, can I, I quite like to challenge you on this one, because, you see, I've got, a friend of mine is a lawyer. He's basically worked with the same clients for 20 years, okay? Exactly the same people. The personnel's the same, the client's the same. And not surprisingly, he's still working with them, okay? Because there's continuity of relationship, there's loyalty in the relationship. And I know, Lisa, you've been working with Ogilvy for a very long time, right? But, there's so much data around this, that marketing directors, is now every 3 years is the average of change. Agencies get knocked out because there's new marketing directors. There's more drive towards project. So on the one hand, this is going on. On the other hand, there's a demand from clients to say, understand my business more, get under the skin of it. And it's very hard to do both those things. It's very hard as an agency, isn't it, to be absolutely under the skin of everything about the client and be part of it and a partner at the same time as they're being used either for specialists or projects or delivery. And there's change at the client end, which means that a new marketing director comes in, and very often, let's be honest, it doesn't happen necessarily in all your instances, but it very often happens that triggers a new agency. So how do agencies deal with that?
So I want to I'll pick up on that, but I want to bring up something that Barbara said, which I think is the crux of everything that we've been talking about. And you can look at it from procurement, you can look at it from creative, is this idea of trust and respect, right? And everything. And this phrase I love, and I'm going to kind of add to it. Every client gets the agency they deserve, and every agency gets the client they deserve, right? So, and that you could also say every client gets the work they deserve. Because if you don't go down to those two fundamental values of trust and respect, like it'll all go. It doesn't matter if you've in-housed or you've out-housed or if whatever, right? Like if it doesn't come down to that, then it all falls apart. And I've seen my entire career, I can easily go back to those two exact points. And if you don't respect each other's roles, and if you don't have trust in each other, and you have each other's back, it doesn't matter what construct you have, who you have on the business, it just all falls apart.
Okay. Anybody else like to take a view on that?
So in terms of, thank you, Lisa. I'm just thinking like 100 examples of, and probably just like the film inside my head. But what I'm just picking up on what you said, I think there was a time in the world where it basically was like coming back to your question regarding, hey, where are the creative agencies? Where the creative agency was often the lead agency, and then underneath the lead agency, you had the other agencies. And I'm experiencing it, certainly on what we're doing at the moment, that our lead creative agency absolutely struggles with mainly the new technology. So where they are absolutely amazing is what I would call relatively traditional, the traditional model of TV, out of home, the odd banner, those things. But also the overarching strategy, but most of the time even data. But where they struggle then is when I say, right, we're going to use programmatic, and it's going to be programmatic, and you're probably, I don't know, it's going to be endless, because you need to work with the ad serving system in order to create dynamic ads. The moment where my account team goes blank and says, okay, well, we don't have an ad server specialist. I'm like, awesome, work with the media agency. And this is where I think that coming from a creative agency, I started in creative and media, this is where the downfall is. If the creative agencies don't understand the technology, then they are unfortunately still leading the overall comms construct and the platform. I would always leave that with a creative agency that is mainly a creative agency, but technology, that's the one thing where I think this is where you basically have the ones that move forward and the ones that will.
Okay.
I would
Nick,
just,
sorry,
on that,
Christina.
I would absolutely agree. And I actually think on the question of creativity, so there's the creative, but then I think the media buying plan and the whole idea of where you then surface that creative, what channels, what times, when are people seeing it, that is becoming the new creative. So, it's not just about the look and feel, it's about the timing. And you actually need the data, you need the technology to be able to do that. So the tech is becoming the creative bit, I think.
So we have a philosophy, we have this, it's like a new thing in Diageo, it's like called media first. So the first thing you do is sit down as a brand team and you sit down and think about, what are the communication channels? But that's but the important thing is to make sure that the consumer insight that you're working to, both the creative and the media agency, is the same. And then you apply that to your media thinking, and that then sets the agenda for which of the agencies that we need to engage to deliver the idea.
Nick, you were going to comment?
I was going to build on that part. I think for me, if there's one message, I think the fundamental change that's going on inside clients, and it's driven by data and it's driven by the ability to mass personalize. It's certainly the case in the service industries that and peers I talk with. For us inside businesses, we're having to really, really rethink how we're organized. It really does change things quite fundamentally. And therefore, how you help us and how you interact with us is really understanding this very different world. It's operating in real time, it's contextualizing, it's being relevant, et cetera, et cetera. It is a completely different model. So if I take an example of media, even with a media agency, there are some things in future clients are going to be able to do with data management platforms and personalizing websites and communications. Think about how you're organized. You're organized with specialists in different functions, whether you're specialists in buying advertising space or whatever else. But through a client's eyes, we're just going, we're living real time, we've got all this data, we need you to help us and think about this in a very transversal way. And I think that equally how you deal with creativity. And that revolution is not going to stop. I mean, we had a business away day the other day with all our directors, and it was absolutely a live issue about how do we change our business, because we have no choice but to do that.
So is your contention really that, again, we're generalizing here, but, that you don't see enough agencies pivoting at the speed that you want them to pivot at because of the nature of the organization having to change?
Yes.
Okay.
And really understanding what is changing,
right,
so that you can really help us.
So
Nobody has the answer to this, by the way. We're all in this revolution.
Yeah.
Okay, but a single company that knows.
But it's a yeah. Okay. So next question.
Paul. Thank you. I'm Charlie Carpenter from Creative Brief. The study that Stephen referenced was one that we did, and it was a study of 50 client CMOs and then 50 agency CEOs, and just coming to the point that Lisa made about sort of trust and respect, and I suppose, and actually understanding probably between the two parties of client and agency. One of the questions we asked was, are clients in this day and age looking to their agencies specifically for kind of truly transformational ideas, or are they, ultimately briefing them a bit more prescriptively around kind of channel-specific content and ultimately more incremental gain that they're looking for? And actually 95% of clients, so pretty much all clients, said they believed that they were briefing agencies on transformational ideas, but only just over 50% of agencies said that that's what they believed they were doing.
Okay, that's great.
So what's the panel's view on just the discrepancy there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Who's going to kick off? Christina?
Well, I actually interviewed somebody for a job this week, and she said, as she worked for an agency, and she said to me, we always develop two ideas. We come in with a big idea, and then we have a second idea that most of the time gets used because we can't get agreement on the big idea. We'll probably 70% of the time, or maybe more, they go with the second idea, which is a bit more boring, which is a bit more mainstream.
But why would it? I mean, Charlie's research there. I mean, 85%. That's pretty emphatic, isn't it? Saying that clients want a transformational idea. So is that a research artifact? Is that people saying, yes, I want it, but actually when it comes to reality, I don't really want it? I mean, why is it that, agencies are getting challenged massively there, come to me with challenging transformational ideas, change my world, and then there's a side of it that says, well, I'm not sure I want it.
I love doing the big thing, and it's great doing it with an agency because I'm not doing it on my own. You know what I mean? So bringing something disruptive, and this is what we're all about with what we're doing with AI, bringing something disruptive and dropping that rock into that pond and kind of seeing how it trickles out and seeing kind of where you end up is hard. It's hard, but you know what? Easy is boring.
Yeah.
God, it's
No,
boring.
that's good. But you know, you can see the potential frustration from the world of agencies is that, you know, they're constantly getting thrashed for come to me with innovative ideas, come to me with transformational, break my world, be disruptive, and then it falls on deaf ears a lot of the time because understandably, you know, it's not. Client organizations are obviously risk adverse, risk management organizations, understandably. You know, we were talking about this before, Simon, you know, the corporate governance has never been bigger in a client organization, and yet agencies pride themselves on being cool and different and disruptive, and they don't have the same sense of corporate governance. So there's a bit of a mismatch going on there, I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's interesting. I've just finished, just signed off the bill, actually. Thank you for, it was horrible. I've been working for 18 months with Boston Consulting.
Boy.
Yeah, you look at me and go, oh, God.
God.
It's quite a short period of time.
It's quite
exactly.
and I've probably still got them around for another a year and a half. But anyway, but actually it's been a really, really interesting process. And they came in, and one of the things that I brought them in to do was say, how can we get better at working with our agencies?
Right.
That was the challenge.
That's good.
And I'd done various, because one of the things that, you know, I see our role as is we're sort of like global marriage guidance counsellors. So our job is to basically maximise the value we get out of the spend. But the only way we can do that is to have really great relationships with our agencies. We can't, if we haven't got that. And we need to make sure, you know, our decision-making process is right and everything else like that. So we had them working with us, and we will be launching a sort of like a new initiative, which is really to try and drive better work out of our agencies. And that will be launched by SIL sort of later this year, which, I mean, it's been really exciting.
Can you give us any little insight into?
Well, we're going to do sort of things like we're going to ask our agencies to hold us to account on things.
Okay.
So if the key decision maker isn't in the meeting, don't have the meeting.
But really hold you to account in
Yeah,
what sense?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, we presented to the marketing leadership team, and they went, "Yeah, we're absolutely up for it."
Okay.
So they're really.
We'll
pushing.
see.
We'll see.
Yeah,
But the thing is, I'm putting in measurement in place.
Okay.
So it's going to be measured. It's not something you can put in place and just say, you know. But it's really important.
Okay.
But you know, this whole area of getting to really great work is really quite difficult in a big organisation. And one of the things that we identified is the biggest problem is, you know, I have a global brand team that are trying to create a global campaign. And then you've got all these other markets that are spinning around it, and they're all basically watering it down. Oh, it won't work here, won't work there. So not invented here syndrome becomes a real issue. And actually, what we're trying to do is address not invented here.
Yeah, okay.
And I think what you have to do as a client is say, if we want big ideas, and you know, we produce some of the most iconic advertising in the world, we want to continue to do that. But we recognise that our organisation is actually holding us back, and that's what we're trying now to address. And create that step change.
Okay, next question. Yes, gentleman in the fourth row, I think. Chuck in the ball. Thank you.
Hello, Andrew from Good Stuff in London, independent media agency. Given the dark clouds that are over the global network media agencies right now, and you talk about the need for agility, flexibility, and being more in tune with your business, and I guess how much indie media agencies have changed and grown. What more do we need to do to get one of you five to appoint a independent media agency?
That's a very good question. And I think, you know, I'm sure that might lead us into conversations around transparency as well, which is probably haven't touched on yet, which I think probably we ought to. But maybe Barbara would like to comment on that, being the person who I know you have a lot of experience.
Has a media background. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, I mean, with media, it is a particularly difficult topic in the sense that where media, you've got two components of media. One is the qualitative, the other is the quantitative. And the pricing depends on the mood of the company in that year. It depends more on, we're looking at buying media at the lowest level. And the next year, it may be, let's more look into qualitative. So if the mood is more around the, you know, buy it at the lowest price, then it's just where the big networks, when you buy it sort of on big scale media, it's just where they often simply just put the better pricing on the table. The other issue can be for smaller agencies is simply technology. So some of the larger agencies are now coming back with really big technology platforms. I'm not saying they're always working. I can actually vouch that they're not always working. However, the pitch is good. So coming back to, so where do smaller agencies can really make a difference and can come into a business like ours? I think, again, this comes down to a specific task. So for a massive consumer brand, a massive consumer campaign, which goes like nationwide, most likely not, because that's often very price driven. However, we do have some topics which are very specific, like addressing, I mean, we're payments, so addressing small and medium businesses is something where if I brief that to a very large agency, I do get a bit of an off-the-shelf media plan back. So this is, you know, for as an example, and I'm sure that my colleagues here have a lot of more examples of, those are things where you really need a team that is very specialized, and because it's about quality.
So
I
I'm
would say, like,
sorry, Lisa.
play to your strengths, speed and agility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That is so clear to me, having worked with big agencies and small agencies. Just play to your strength, and if you can get something fast done, and you can do it in an agile way, I would absolutely look to a boutique agency or an independent agency to get something done. And if you have the guts to go forward and try some AI stuff and really try something different, that it will take a larger agency longer time, play to that strength as well.
So without doing a pitch for good stuff, do you want to come back on that point and just, because do you agree with that? Is that your view?
I do. It's not really answering the question. It's I guess.
There you go.
Oh, sorry. I guess, yeah, it comes back to what it is you're looking for from an agency, isn't it? Is it about quality, and is it about improving your brand and about the value of an agency, or is it about the price? So I guess, Lisa, it was more what more do we need to do as a collective to, you know, get ourselves in front of IBM to present our case against the networks?
I'm going to go back to what I said, speed and agility.
I was
Right?
going to
Yeah.
Okay, Nick,
second
come on,
that.
yep.
I think speed and agility, absolutely, because of the pace that you have to do things now, and it
Right.
accelerates and accelerates and accelerates. And the other one is understanding what a client has to do, which is you have to do your own mailings and personalizing your own websites, and how you supplement that with media. And I think the win-win is if you can get your head around what clients are doing, there's absolutely an opportunity around there, because it isn't just buying things and doing things in-house, and they're completely at different ends of the spectrum, really working at how you can complement that dynamic.
Well, okay, going to move on to another area now around sort of collaboration. Julian talked about collaboration earlier. It's one of the greatest things about Network One, and and I think a lot of what Maeve talked about was the sort of collaborative world we're in now. So, you know, you hear it a lot from clients, which is, I want all my agencies to collaborate with each other. You know, I want this happy family. I want everyone to get on, and I want everyone to be, you know, make sure that they're not stepping on each other's toes. There's no infighting going on. That's what I want as a client. But then, you know, great idea, you know, and obviously that's exactly what you would want as a client. But of course, you know, very often the rules of engagement are not established early on. So, you know, there is instances where, you know, and I've heard, you know, stories of people say that you'll go along the same briefing, but no one knows who owns this budget, who owns that budget. So let's be honest, it's a commercial world, so naturally there's a bit of jockeying for position about who owns this, who owns that. So is that a naive view? Is it naive to believe that basically all the agencies can sit around a table, all be terribly collaborative and easygoing with each other, and actually genuinely work together without necessarily fighting for their bit of the turf?
Well, we've put media first that stops that.
Right.
Because if you put media first at the start of the process, then everybody has a pretty good idea about what you need to produce, and therefore you're not going into a room and saying, this is the business challenge, right, what do we all think?
Yeah.
Because you may have quite a broad roster of agencies. You take that, you do it at the beginning, and if you like, then you work out what your media is going to be and say, right, I need the PR agency, I need the mainstream agency, I don't need anybody else. So, and then you make it very clear, and you have to set out the rules at the beginning.
Right.
You have to be very clear as a client, this is what I want you to do, and this is how I want you to collaborate. And I know some clients, you know, you do it, but where you actually get everybody off site and you put them into a, you know, when we've had real, you know, when we launched, you know, Bailey's Chocolat, for example, we made all the agencies work in one building.
And I know you've had experience at IBM.
You've done
Yeah, we created it. We create a physical space. We have created a physical space called 11th Avenue, and where we brought all of everyone from communications through to government affairs, through to events, to advertising, digital media, into one space and worked together. I wouldn't say that I loved it, to be honest.
Okay, but it can, okay.
But I think it's the future. I
But
honestly
we
think
kind
it's
of
gonna be-
jammed
Yeah.
everyone together, and they jammed, so to speak,
Yeah.
to come out with the output.
Okay, next question. Sir.
behind you.
There's too many men asking questions, okay? Just want to make that point.
Hello, my name is Misha Pimenov. The company is called Pepelats Production, and I'm from Ukraine. Continuing on the collaboration, the topic I would like to raise is the centralization and decentralization. It seems like, you know, you're all managing global brands or regional brands. Diageo products are being consumed all over the world. Yeah, Visa is used also in many countries, even in Ukraine. On this centralized model or decentralized model, can you comment like which one you're currently using? If you are from the headquarters, you are using agencies, let's say also stationed in London. When you roll out campaigns, do you roll out only global campaigns, or do you do the localization? How do you do it? Do you guys work with agencies outside of London as your primary agency, let's say? Because we've got delegates from all over the, from different countries representing.
Thank you. Okay,
yeah.
So is there a drive really towards centralization, decentralization? Who'd like to comment on that? Barbara.
Okay, so does it work? Yes. Brilliant question. Neighboring country, Ukraine to Poland. So because I have a bit of a sort of a role which is an in-between role. I actually do a region, but I sit in London, which means my colleagues are the central people. And then obviously we've got global over in San Francisco. And it depends a bit, again, on the mood of the times, but also it depends on what is the objective that the company wants to drive. So for Visa, there are some objectives which are global objectives, like cross-border payments. So when you go on holiday, or when you shop, I don't know, with Amazon in whatever, Germany is probably closest to Ukraine. So cross-border payments is completely being led out of global, and we basically do adaptions into the local market. There is a small budget there, which is then also, okay, so what do we need to do in order to localize it further? Because there may be some, we've got in Poland a lot of inbound traffic from Norway and Sweden. It's probably because the beer is cheap, I think, but you know. Anyhow, so but then there are things which are genuinely local, and those things, I've got a big array of agencies in Warsaw, in Prague, and I work with them to create something that sits under the global umbrella, but is only looking into local objectives. So is there room for local players in how Visa operates? Absolutely. The big global initiatives are being run, though, out of global. And Visa, as such, even on a global level, employs currently 3 global creative agencies. So it's not all in one. And then there's local.
Okay. I'm going to move on to another question, actually, so because there are quite a few other topics that'd be quite good to cover, actually. So, anybody else like to ask a question? Gentleman, right at the halfway up the row here, actually. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Kevin Friedman, Freeman International. I'm interested to understand the panel's experience and views of 2 trends. One is the march of the big consultancies into the advertising segment. Obviously, IBM's a big player anyway in advertising in their own agency. And also the trend of inside agencies.
Okay. Let's. Anybody like to take that one?
So I'll try
Lisa.
the first part. So IX, right?
IX.
IBM IX is our digital agency for clients, right? So it's a really interesting thing.
Biggest agency in the world now.
Yeah, well, that's what we say, right? So, or I hope other people say versus we say, but it's a bit church and state, if I could use that phrase. I was just with IX pitching to a client yesterday, just giving IBM as a case study as to how we use data to make decisions, basically, on our campaigns. So we collaborate from that perspective. But other than that, they go and really look externally to go pitch clients, just like you guys would pitch clients. And we probably should collaborate a little more, but we don't. So there's pretty much a Chinese wall or a fine line between the two. We probably could market even better. Like, they're going to show up to Cannes next week. I'm sure a lot of you guys will go to Cannes, and you guys will go to Cannes next week. But we haven't worked together to go to Cannes, so to speak, right? So I think it's we're just feeling our way, to be really honest.
Because there's often the likes of Deloitte and the management consultants often pitch themselves, don't they? Is that they're independent in the way agencies aren't, because they don't recommend something a deliverable and executional. They recommend consultancy. Now, the counter argument to that, of course, is they are recommending consultancy. So they've got this saying they're selling something. They're just selling something different to what agencies are selling. But they definitely, there's clearly, I know there's lots of talked about this, but clearly they are getting more influential. They're involved. Obviously, they're buying agencies like recently Accenture bought Karmarama in the UK. Is that something that you, sorry, I think I was about to interrupt you then, but is that something that you feel as clients that you equally see the balance now? It's like you could go to Accenture, you could go to BBH, you could go to, McCann or whatever. I mean, how competitive?
Can I answer it in a slightly different way? Because I think it's trying to understand why this is happening. I always describe, you cannot do any marketing job now, any senior level, unless you're joined at the hip with your CIO, the Chief Information Officer. You can't do anything without understanding technology or where it's going. Where's mobile going? Where are apps going? Where's artificial intelligence going? Because if you don't understand those things, the world changes around you. So the real need is people that can help you understand and interpret that, so you can try and execute that into action. And I think that's the void that where clients are going. They desperately need help.
So it partly plays to Barbara's point before about the tech is not necessarily as embedded in agencies, in some agencies.
It's understanding the implications of it.
Right.
You just saw earlier on voice. You think about voice. If you're a client going, okay, it's jolly nice that you can do things and customers can talk to something to search. What's the implication of that? If Google is controlling the thing that you talk to, and I've spent the last 10 years building up a direct distribution strategy with our website, and suddenly you can't see the website, you're talking to something and Google decides where the answer to the travel need occurs. That's why you talk to companies going, what is that? What is the implication of it? What do we need to do or change? So I think that's one part. And I think the second one is there's a crying shortage of people with strong analytical and data skills. Massive shortage in the market. You try and employ people in-house, but actually they're incredibly expensive. So again, that's a void as well that is an opportunity.
So does the CMO own data? Should they own data always in every organisation? Should that come, data should report into marketing or the equivalent?
I think it's good. You answer the question.
No, well, I would bring it up a level, right? Who owns the client experience?
The company does.
Right,
It's not
and
an individual.
then you start to peel it back from there, right? But then I get very uncomfortable if one person, there's no one throat to choke, so to speak, right? Then everyone gets a little lazy and it's that person's job, it's that person's job. So just for argument's sake, if the CMO owns the client experience, or the CDO, the Chief Digital Officer, whatever your touch points are, I think you're right, it is everyone, because if you have a face-to-face selling organization, they own that client experience. It's like NPS, right? It's this with respect to those touch points. Then from there, that person has to own the data, and they have to look at that data every single day to understand what they can learn from it to serve their clients better.
We haven't, creativity wasn't mentioned before, but we now brought that in. Diversity, right? No one's spoken about diversity at the moment. When we did this panel last year, Graham Badnash from Google said, if agencies turn up to a credentials meeting at Google and there isn't a woman in the team, a minimum position, right? Just even one woman, he will not even entertain them, right? Now, it's interesting that nobody's particularly asked that, and we haven't spoken about that. But is that, clearly it's a massive issue. We know that there's not sufficient diversity, whether it's to do with gender or ethnicity or neurodiversity, what do you want to call it, in the world of marketing and agencies. How significant an issue is that for you guys? Christina.
Yes. Well, the FT is, as a company, it's a huge focus for us. We have about 50-50 men and women across the company. I would say that we have a huge drive in driving female readers. So if an agency can't come with ideas that will appeal to a female audience, it's a no-go, really. I guess it's looking at the audience. So, who do you want your agency to represent? They need to ultimately represent your readers and be able to speak to them. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
It's a philosophy. If you believe you get the best work out of diverse teams, then you build diverse teams.
Yes.
That's what our philosophy is.
It's a huge part of our agenda.
Yes.
Part of everything that we do.
Yeah.
It's diversity of ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not diversity of people, it's
No, okay,
groups of people that
right.
give you
Yeah.
diversity of the idea, therefore, whatever the situation is.
Okay, let's one more question. Yes, right at the back. We've got to throw that ball without hitting the glass. Yeah, that's amazing.
It's Mark from Blueprint. Going back right to the beginning, you talked about what you like from agencies, and you talked about the big idea, you talked about being brave, being insight, and building relationships. With the ever non-stop rise of the power of the purchasing department, our ability to put in big ideas is removed, because at the end of the day, marketing will sign off 3 ideas and purchasing will choose the cheapest one. And our idea to build relationships is restricted, because we're not allowed to communicate, and there's no tissue sessions in it. You can't build those relationships in the same way. Is that something that you're finding as a trend in your organisations, or is it in the limited field that?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm going to pass to Simon on that, because he's probably the best man to answer that.
I think if any client company is driven by the price to buy an idea, it's crazy. So if I talk about, so when I joined Diageo, one of the first things I did was try and address our pitch process when we were appointing new agencies. I wanted to create a process that was very iterative, so you really got to know the agency. And I also said that what we need to do is introduce a process where we paid the agencies for the contribution they're making. And the pitch process we run is very output or solution focused. So when we brief a brand team, when we're running a pitch, we try not to run pitches. But, if I get, for example, the Johnny Walker pitch, we basically said to the team, right, you have 5 agencies, they're all going to run at trying to win this piece of business. You have to respect them, and you have to work with them, and you have to basically try and get 5 winners. That's what we want to do. I want to be in a situation where it's really difficult to choose. And then it wasn't about the money, it was about the idea. And the idea that ultimately won that piece of business was the idea that we ran. And that's the way we always work, and that's why we've always been very focused.
Good. I think I've been told to wrap now. So I just want to say thank you very much to our amazing panel. Round of applause. Thank you very much.